Once again, welcome to one and all. Now, I would like to request Professor Erlend, Bendik, Myhre sir, Professor Shashi Gaikwad madam, Professor Vaibhav Zadav sir, to please come on the dais. So, so please come on the dais. We heard about the role of Indian knowledge system in the previous session. Now we are fortunate to have an eminent personality for the keynote address. I request Professor Vaibhav Zadav sir to introduce Professor Erlend Bendik Myhre sir on this occasion.
Good morning. 1 minute is left. That's why good morning. I'm here to introduce Professor Erlend. Professor Erlend, I personally known him since 2012 in the project of the Savitribai Phule Pune University and University of Southeastern Norway. He is a professor in the Faculty of Teacher Education in University of Southeastern Norway, Drammen campus. We work together on the project of Join and teaching. Teaching is one of the project which is funded by the government of Norway to the Indian university, and Pune University is the one of the leading partner of this project. Professor Erlend completed his bachelor in public administration, bachelor degree in cooperative politics, pre-master degree in the politics of science, master degree in comparative internationalization politics. He has visited number of the different countries. He completed his some program in the University of Ottawa, Canada. He delivered session in the University of Berger, University of Hague, Germany, University of Hague, Netherlands. Who has actually, when I work with him, since basically on teaching, I realized that he has a very comprehensive knowledge regarding the internationalization policies with teacher education. Recently, a lot of crisis is happening in the world, and he is working on US policy, Chinese system, holistic education basically also. Today, we requested him that please light on us like any sample case regarding the internationalization at home in the sense of each any country of the world. So I'm not spending a lot of time. I request to Professor Erland to enlighten with your knowledge. Thank you.
Just a minute, sir. Thank you, sir. Sorry for the disturbance. Now, I would like to request Dr. Asha Toke madam to introduce Professor Shashi Gaikwad madam and Professor Vaibhav Zadav sir.
Yes, thank you, madam. A very good afternoon to present here. It is my pleasure to introduce today's chairperson and co-chairperson. मला आज विशेष आनंद होतो आहे की एक माझे गुरु आणि एक माझ्या महागुरु यांचा परिचय करून देण्याची संधी आज मला इथे मिळालेली आहे. First, I would like to introduce you Dr. Shashikala Gaikwad, madam. Her qualification is PhD, NET, MEd. She has done many degrees. She has earned many degrees. Presently, she is a freelancer in teacher training and orienting sessions, value education and special education sessions. She has a marathon experience of 59 years at various levels, various activities she has done. She was headed YCMOU School of Education as a director and reader. She was the principal of Ponda Education Society's College of Education. She was also the principal of Ashoka Educational and Research Institute, Nasik. Under her guidance, total 38 students have completed their research work. In that, 5 students of PhD, 3 students at MPhil, 20 students of MEd, and 10 students of PG program. She has published total 6 books. Due to the constraint of time, it is not possible to read each and every minute detail. So I have make it very cut short. She has been awarded with the Best Teacher Award by Council for Teacher Education and Hirkani Award by Sahyadri Channel, Mumbai Doordarshan. So, ma'am, it is our honor to have you with us. Now, next, I would like to introduce my guru, Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav, sir. Currently, he is working as a associate professor in Department of Education, and he is a coordinator in School of Open Learning and coordinator of School of Education. He has more than 20 years experience, and he is awarded with the prestigious CV Raman postdoctoral fellowship by UGC. Then he is authored more than 10 books, and 2 students under his guidance have completed their PhD. So again, this was very short introduction of him. There are a lot of things to say, but due to time constraint, I will not mention here. So thank you so much for joining the session.
Thank you, madam. Now we would like to welcome our esteemed guests. I request respected Professor Shashi Gaikwad madam to welcome respected Professor Erlend Bendik Myhre sir on this occasion. I would like to request everyone to please give a huge round of applause. Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request welcome, sir. Now I would like to request respected Professor Vaibhav Jadhav sir to welcome respected Professor Shashi Gaikwad madam on this occasion. Ma'am, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Now I would like to request respected Parshika sir to welcome Professor Vaibhav Jadhav sir on this occasion. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I invite respected Professor Erlend Bendik Myhre sir for the keynote address.
Thank you. There. Yeah. Now I think it works. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, so I have to press there.
The changer is here.
Yeah, okay. Good. Good afternoon to all. And thank you for all these kind words. and thank you for the invitation. My friend, Professor Sanjeev Sonavane, Vice Chancellor of Yaswantrao Chavan, Maharashtra Open University, and dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, and all the teacher education people in this room. Thank you very much. I was a bit afraid when Vibo told me that I should talk about internationalization, because normally when we talk about internationalization, it is about going abroad. So I thought that maybe we should talk more about internationalization at home. So that's what I want to talk about today. It's only a small minority that go abroad. And I'm a great fan of going abroad. I've been abroad on many exchanges myself. But the reality, I think, in any teacher education is that most people don't go. So how do we do internationalization at home? So I will say a few words about that, and then I will present something that I've been working on, a case study, a reflection on how I tried to bring internationalization to my students in Drammen, and also by looking at some tiny elements on the periodic table, the rare earth elements. And since we're in India, I think the analogy is very good, that you can think of the rare earth elements as the spices in the food. You don't need that much, but you really notice if they are not there. So I guess I'll move on to my first slide. Most students don't go on exchange. How do we bring internationalization at home? It's a bit of a strange time in the world today. As you heard, my background is in political science, international relations, and I teach a topic at the teacher education, didactics for social studies teachers, on geopolitics. And I started the course because I felt something was missing in our education. It was all good education about human rights and sustainable development, and it looked a bit too positive for a skeptic political scientist like me. So I wanted to introduce some of the darker sides of the world today, and also the world that, while we're trying to fight global warming, other systems are occupied with other things, and they have other purposes. Today, our modern life depends on mainly all the elements in the periodic table. It's kind of interesting. I think I read somewhere that in the human body, we only have 30 elements. An iPhone has 60 or 70. But we are probably more complicated still, I suppose. To be able to feed the modern world with materials, we have relied on a world order where every country cooperates. The liberal world order, because mines can only be where you can find the minerals. And with climate change and the green shift, we need global cooperation more than ever. But the geopolitical reality of our world today is moving in the complete opposite direction. SIPRI, the center in Stockholm, they said that the last 2 years we've seen more conflicts in the world that we have seen since the Second World War. And to my understanding, it doesn't look like the geopolitical situation is going to get any better. And here we come into some kind of systems thinking. And if we look at the Club of Rome founder, Dana Meadows, for instance, she said that if you want to understand systems, you have to look at what's the purpose of the system. So what's the purpose of fighting climate change? Well, the purpose is no more global warming. But that stands up against other systems with different purposes. Capitalism, the purpose is economic growth. National security is about the state surviving. And unfortunately, states are the strongest actors in our world today. And so these systems, they are incompatible. And I think there are some changes coming now. There have been talks about polycrisis. A recent article by Lawrence and Johan Rockström, climate scientists, both of them, say that we now need to understand how these systems interact. And I think that is in time. It should have happened long before. Because we normally end up, and it's very easy for me now when I come from Norway to India, to think of bounded rationality and how we all are what we see, and how we all see what we are. I think that aphorism captures a lot of things, but it also captures how specialized we have become in our world today. So we have to approximate a lot of things to understand or have the feeling of understanding how the world really works, because it's too complicated. So normally we have expertise on one thing, and if we talk about that, we say this thing is very complicated. And we think about other specialists, and we think, maybe not so complicated that. We approximate that a bit. And I think we have to. I think it's human nature. But I was working on a geopolitics model for my students. I was just thinking within my one system of national security. And then there were some news that in Norway we might have Europe's biggest resource of rare earth elements. And I looked at my model, and I see in my model that I talk about critical raw materials. But I had been approximating a lot. I didn't really know what it meant. And now with the rare earth elements being on the list of the EU, on the fresh list of India that came out on 26th of June 2023, on the US's list, on the Japan's list of critical minerals, you have these rare earths. And that is because China completely dominates the rare earth sector, from mine to magnet. So the more I thought about this, and the more I interacted with people with knowledge about different sides of rare earth, I saw that they were part of different systems. You need them in the electric vehicles, magnets in the electric vehicles. They won't function without them. You need them in wind turbines. You need them also in the military for a lot of things, for fighter jets and for submarines. And you need them in all electronic gadgets and smartphones. So how do I go about to make this interesting for my students? How do I bring this international perspective to a bunch of young students in a Norwegian classroom that are most of the time, sitting on their phones and wondering about a new boyfriend or girlfriend? I have realized that if we want to learn anything at all, we need to have a sense that this is relevant. And here the rare earths was the perfect entrance. Many students today are very interested in climate change and wants to fight it. Some of my students are interested in geopolitics, believe it or not. And all of my students really are interested in their smartphones. And of course, with the Fen complex, maybe the biggest resource in Europe that currently doesn't have a mine for rare earths, just 2 hours from campus, this seemed like the perfect thing. And I went about this by trying to find someone to come and talk to my students. And I want to tell you that story about how an American former CEO of the only separation plant for rare earths in Europe, in Estonia, ended up talking to my students at our campus in Drammen. after the story, I will talk a bit about the stakes involved, and especially how this rematerialized how I see the world. Now I can't stop looking at things. Like, I look at the table and I'm wondering, like, how many elements are in this? It's probably more than I think. Where are they mined? Where is the waste disposed? Is it really recycled? So I guess I go to the story. So we are experiencing an international order that is breaking apart. This is nothing new. We can see that this happens after a longer time of peace. After big wars, peace is the most important thing for every actor. So we create League of Nations or UN or something. But then time passes and suddenly other things become more important, such as values. And then we get another age of conflict. And today, the leading hegemon, the US, they are fearing the rising China. And we have seen this many times before in history. It's known as Thucydides' trap, all the way back to the Peloponnesian Wars, when Sparta was the hegemon and saw Athens rising through economics. And they had to make a decision. Should we let them become more powerful than us, or should we go to war? The last 16 cases in world history where this has happened, only 4 of them did not lead to war. Soviet versus the US was one of them. Both of them had nuclear weapons. But this is what we are in right now. And we see a just-in-time, trade-with-all liberal world order is fading away. The US, they are hindering semiconductors to China. China replies by hindering the US to get semiconductor materials, germanium and gallium, and in December, rare earth technology. In the middle of this little peaceful Norway, the EU wants to be independent from China too in critical materials, and they have no mines. And now we know, 2 hours from campus, probably the biggest mine could be made for rare earths in Europe. But how do you understand this? I've been thinking a lot about approximation after I dealt with the rare earth. And so how do I find someone that actually knows this stuff? So I start calling around. I called a Norwegian professor that had been an honorary professor of metallurgy at a Chinese university. And he said, I can tell you all about the metals, but I never thought about the geopolitics. I never went out to see the processing centers. And he was very bounded in his system thinking. And I called a lot of these environmental organizations, and they didn't think about the geopolitics either. They were just occupied with their new dilemma, that you want to protect nature, but you need to extract from nature the things you need to stop climate change. In one of my calls to a tiny startup to try to separate REE, rare earth elements, I talked to a CEO who seemed really disinterested, and he just said, maybe you can talk to David. He can talk to you. And I got his email, and when I saw his email name, it said David O'Brock. And I had read about him in a book about rare earth elements. One of the few experts on rare earth elements had went to Estonia to see how difficult this process is. I called David, and he says that he's willing to come and spend a day with me and my students in Drammen. And I also had to tell him, the only thing I can offer you is a mug with the name of the university. And he still showed up, a businessman from outside. So my students, they don't really know what's going to happen. I tell them, we're going to try to get a deep dive into rare earth elements. And there is this American guy coming to talk to you. So one day he stands in front of my students and he asks these questions. Do you like that your iPhone vibrates? Do you like that it has a speaker and a microphone? Do you like that we have electric vehicles to try to wean ourselves off fossil fuels and wind turbines? Do you prefer that your country has weapons to defend itself? And they kind of agreed to all of this. And then, of course, he said, it all depends on these 17 tiny elements, the rare earths. There you had the relevance. They were all paying attention. And for me, I also felt that this was an introduction that captures three systems. It captures security, it captures global warming, and it captures modernity and how we rely on all these elements in the periodic table. His lecture started with him having this really, really boring talk about how you start a mine, how long it takes, how much radioactivity is clinging to these rare earths, and the processing and extraction. And he went on and on and on, because this is very difficult. And of course, that's very important, because that's why we can't just start a rare earth mine. In India, you had a rare earth critical strategy report coming out in 2012. And now in 2023, on the 26th of June, there's a new report saying this is still a critical mineral. So he really captured that, but he also captured something else. And that is that there is a material reality. We walk around with our specializations and we don't realize anymore, or at least me, that, okay, this room probably needs a lot of sand to make concrete and cement and steel. We have so many metals surrounding us and we don't think about them. But when you start to see materials, you can't stop. Believe me, if you try, you can't stop. There was this Sky journalist that wrote a book now called Material World, and he did a calculation. And he said this is as good a measure as GDP per capita. How much steel surrounds each person in a country? In Western countries, he found that maybe the steel use was satiated at 17 tons per person. That's 17,000 kilos of steel. In India, now in China, he found that they are probably around 8 or 9. Are they going to stop now, or are they going to go to 15, 17? They too. In sub-Saharan Africa, each person is surrounded by less than 1 ton. So if they get the steel, you can try to calculate. The steel always comes in combination with concrete. You make bridges, you make hospitals, you make schools. We need buildings. So this very thorough way of going through what it meant to extract the rare earth elements is, of course, something you can use on all material things surrounding us. This is the... So 4 things were at stake. Modern technology is at stake. The International Energy Agency, they have discovered that it takes normally 16.5 years to start up a mine. The mine in Norway hasn't started yet. Someone tried to start a mine in Norway 2 years ago. That would have been the first mine in Norway in 39 years. And what's the problem? When the global that we have outsourced to China is coming back to Norway, it is that, of course, we want the benefits. Norway is great at importing Teslas, electric vehicles, but we don't like the consequences. We want someone else to mine the magnet. We want someone else to take away all the radioactivity. In China, they have a big radioactive lake outside their rare earth elements at Bayan Obo. So we have all these discussions in Norway now. Wind turbines are coming up and people are demonstrating. 2 weeks ago, we had a lot of Sami indigenous people in front of our parliament because of a wind farm where their reindeer is going. And we have this discrepancy between people that thought that, of course, I'm a good person, so I want to fight climate and I want to save nature. But they face a new dilemma, because you can't save both. That's a consequence of de-risking, and it's a consequence of countries like my own actually becoming part of a real world again. Actions have consequences. And coming from a cushioned welfare state, that is something that's very strange for me and the students to acknowledge. Not in my backyard. Have you heard the term before? That term comes all the time now. Nobody wants anything to do with extraction and refining, and not the disposal of waste either. And we want these benefits. It doesn't add up. So we are in front of a lot of dilemmas. And you can look at the list in the India's mineral report and see what your Department of Mining says that India should start mining in its own backyard. There was just a book that was released called The War Below by a guy called Ernest Scheider. And he's just looking at the local situations all across the USA. And one interesting example for the botanists in this room was TM's buckwheat. That's a flower that basically grows in lithium soil. That's the only place you can find it in the US. And this is what Ursula von der Leyen said about lithium and rare earth. So what do you think the US government are going to do? Are they going to protect TM's buckwheat? Or are they going to extract the lithium? Actually, environmental groups have taken this to court. And the company that wants to extract the lithium, they've taken the flower to a laboratory to try to find a way for this to grow without lithium. But that's a new dilemma. I don't think the mining companies had to think about that before. Here we have from the recent report for India. And I think this is very good when it says that we have to embrace a holistic approach that encompasses many different dimensions, because it is not one dimension. And that's very difficult to think this way in our very specialized world. So I think I will stop there and maybe take some questions. Let me add, it worked. My students, they now have many more perspectives on internationalization, and they managed to see it from more than one point of view. So this was one attempt at bringing internationalization at home. And I think you can do it with many things. If you have expertise in some things, you can see how it connects to many systems and bigger things and international perspectives. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite respected Professor Gaikwad, Madam, to express her views on this session.
Thank you very much, sir, and madams, for giving me this opportunity to chair the session. मैं ये नहीं बोलूँगी कि उन्होंने क्या बोला. What he said, उसमें से I'll pick up certain words जो हमारे लिए उपयुक्त हैं. उन्होंने कहा, हाँ जी, लवकर, मैं थोड़ा सा अंडर प्रोटेस्ट. ओके, उन्होंने कहा माइंस. I will say कि every individual is a mine of gems. We all. He said mines जो है वो physical mines की बात की, उसमें से rarest elements निकालना है. और हमको rarest elements हमारे students में से, teacher educators में से निकालना है. और ये rarest element कौन से हैं? उसकी purity, उसकी निरागसता. जब बच्चा जन्म लेता है, उसके मन में किसी के बारे में द्वेष, ईर्ष्या कुछ नहीं होता है. प्योर होता है. तो ये उसके रेयरेस्ट एलिमेंट्स हैं. उन रेयरेस्ट एलिमेंट्स को हमको आगे बढ़ाना है. किस चीज के लिए बढ़ाना है? इन्होंने इंटरनेशनलाइजेशन की बात की. हमको भारतीय शिक्षा की परंपरा जो है उसमें उन चीजों को लाना है। और रेलेवेंस की जो उन्होंने बात की है कि लर्निंग रिक्वायर्स रेलेवेंस, कब लर्निंग करेंगे? जब हम भारतीय शिक्षा परंपरा का रेलेवेंस उनके सामने रख सकेंगे। ये हमारी जवाबदारी है। हम टीचर एजुकेटर्स का ये बहुत बड़ा रोल है, बहुत बड़ी एक एक्सरसाइज है कि हम उस आशय को, जो आशय हम नहीं बदलने वाले हैं, आशय कभी बदलेगा नहीं, लेकिन आशय के साथ में हमको किस प्रकार से ये भारतीय शिक्षा परंपरा के एलिमेंट्स को जोड़ना है, हर एक विषय में कहाँ पर कौन सा एलिमेंट जुड़ता है, इसको देखने के लिए हमको उस सिलेबस को अच्छे से पढ़ना पड़ेगा, भारतीय शिक्षा परंपरा को अच्छे से जान लेना पड़ेगा। जानते नहीं ऐसी बात नहीं है, बहुत इंफॉर्मेशन हमारे पास है, लेकिन उसका उपयोग हम कैसे करेंगे? मुझे ये सारा सुनते समय कंटेंट कम मेथोडोलॉजी की याद आ रही है कि कैसे हमने कंटेंट और मेथड को जोड़ना चाहा था। आज मुझे ये लग रहा है कि कंटेंट और भारतीय शिक्षा परंपरा के एलिमेंट्स को हमको कैसे जोड़ना है, क्योंकि सेपरेट तो करिकुलम बनाना नहीं है, सेपरेट सब्जेक्ट बनाना नहीं है, कोर्स बनाना नहीं है, लेकिन जो ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग कोर्स है उसको हम कैसे जोड़ें भारतीय शिक्षा परंपरा से। और ये सारी चीजें हमको सबको पता है, सारे एलिमेंट्स हमको पता है। कितने, जब मैं, मेरे ख्याल से आज से 40 साल पहले मैंने भारत का जो नक्शा देखा था वो कैसा था, और आज वो नक्शा जो ऐसा था वो आज ऐसा हो गया है। कभी जब मैं मौका आता है देखने का तो मुझे आश्चर्य होता है कि अरे ये भारत का नक्शा है क्या, ये क्यों बदला है? तो ये सारी चीजें जो है वो हमको थोड़ा जागरूक रह के करना पड़ेगा। और मैं इस समय का ये एक मौका ले लेती हूँ कि ये हमारी जवाबदारी है। प्लीज डोंट टेक इट एज ए टिक मार्क एक्टिविटी। IKS का कॉन्फ्रेंस हो गया, IKS का सेमिनार हो गया, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। उसमें से जरूर कुछ आउटपुट होना चाहिए, और उसके लिए हमको मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी, सोचना पड़ेगा, और फिर हमको एक्शन लेना पड़ेगा। सो वॉल्यूशन, नॉलेज मिल गया है, वॉल्यूशन चाहिए और एक्शन चाहिए। तो ये एक्शन हम लोग लेंगे, ऐसी मैं आशा करती हूँ। और एक बार पुनश्च धन्यवाद करती हूँ आप लोगों को। आप लोगों ने भी सुन लिया, शायद मैंने ज्यादा बोल दिया होगा थोड़ा सा। थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you, madam, for your valuable words. Now, I would like to thank our honorable speaker, Professor Erlend Bendik Myhre, for addressing us on internationalization of various policies in higher education. I would like to thank honorable chairman of the session, Dr. Professor Shashikala Gaikwad, madam, co-chairman of the session, Professor Vaibhav Jadhav, sir, and all the dignitaries present of the dais, as well as all the participants who attended the session actively. Thank you very much for this session.
थैंक यू। अभी हम लोग पैरेलल सेशन में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो जाएंगे, उसके लिए कुछ सूचना है जो मैं अभी बताने जा रही हूँ। एक हमारे जो पैरेलल सेशंस होने वाले हैं वो चार हॉल्स है। पहला हॉल जो है ये ऑडिटोरियम है, सेकंड जो है यहाँ पे बाजू में जो कंप्यूटर हॉल है वही है, थर्ड जो है जहाँ पे हम चाय कॉफी लेते हैं वहाँ पे दो हॉल है, एक है साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी का मीटिंग हॉल, वहाँ पे वो थर्ड हॉल है अपना, और उसी के बाजू में है एजुकेशन का मीटिंग हॉल, वहाँ पे फोर्थ हॉल है। तो हॉल सबको क्लियर हो गए शायद। कल हम लोगों ने आपके पेपर प्रेजेंटेशन का शेड्यूल कैसे रहेगा ये आपके व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे डाल दिया था। अभी मैं चेयरमैन और को चेयरमैन की क्लियरिटी होने के लिए ये भी यहाँ पे अनाउंस कर रही हूँ। एक पैरेलल सेशन अभी का जो है 12 से 1:30 बजे तक का जो है, तो हॉल 1 में प्रोफेसर ज्ञानेंद्र नाथ तिवारी ये जो है ये ऑडिटोरियम में रहेंगे, और प्रोफेसर राम ठाकर जो है वो को चेयर रहेंगे। देन प्रोफेसर राकेश राय जो है वो हॉल नंबर 2 कंप्यूटर का जो है वहाँ पे रहेंगे, और प्राध्यापक माधव पर्शिकर सर जो है वो वहाँ पे को चेयर करके काम करेंगे। प्रोफेसर के चौधरी जो है वो, हाँ, वो हॉल नंबर 3 में चेयरपर्सन है, और डॉक्टर नागार्जुन वाडेकर सर आप उसी हॉल में को चेयरपर्सन करके हैं। देन हॉल नंबर 4 जो है वहाँ पे
रेबुला कृष्णना, हाँ, तो आप है हॉल नंबर 4 में चेयरपर्सन है, और सुरेंद्र पाटोळे, डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र पाटोळे सर है, वो को चेयरपर्सन है। देन 2:30 से 3:30 बजे का जो सेशन है, उसमें आरपी पाठक हॉल नंबर 1 में चेयरपर्सन है, और उनके साथ प्रोफेसर माधुरी सोनोने है। फिर दूसरा कंप्यूटर हॉल है, वहाँ पे सुजीत कुमार मिश्रा और प्रोफेसर सज्जन थुल है। फिर साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी का जो हॉल है, वहाँ पे एमटीबी नागार्जुन आईआईटी वो है, और प्रोफेसर प्रकाश देशमुख जो है वो उसी हॉल में रहेंगे। और चौथा हॉल जो है, उसमें प्रोफेसर जयदीप निकम सर और डॉक्टर रुचा गुजर। ऐसे ये 2:30 से 3:30 बजे का जो सेशन है, उसमें रहेंगे। फिर टी के बाद जो हमारा पैरेलल सेशन है, उसमें प्रोफेसर चंद्रकांत बोरसे करके है, वो यहाँ पे रहेंगे, और उसके साथ डॉक्टर लतिका गायकवाड़ है। देन कंप्यूटर हॉल में प्रोफेसर भूषण करडीले है, और उनके साथ में प्रोफेसर चेतना कमरसकर मैम है। फिर ये जो हॉल है, यहाँ पे सॉरी, साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी का जो हॉल है, वहाँ पे शशि गायकवाड़ और प्रोफेसर विजय कुमार पाइकराव है। और चौथा जो हॉल है, उसमें लेसन आजादी सर और डॉक्टर भूषण सुभाष सोनोने सर है। और बाकी का मैं कल ही बताऊंगी। अभी ये 3 हॉल का मैंने क्लियर, आप बताइए ना। ठीक है ना, तो के चौधरी की जगह ठीक है ना, वहां पे आप चाहिए। बाद में मैं उस हॉल में जाके चेक करती हूँ कौन है, नेम ले लूंगी। ओके ओके, तो ये एक है। दूसरा एक है, जहाँ यहाँ पे जो पेपर प्रेजेंट होने वाले हैं, ये पेपर्स में 2 बेस्ट पेपर आईआईटी की तरफ से दिए जाते हैं, जहाँ पे कुछ कैश भी रहती है और सर्टिफिकेट रहता है। तो वो 2 पेपर निकाले जाएंगे। और हम हर एक कॉन्फ्रेंस में जैसे करते हैं कि हर पैरेलल सेशन में हर एक हॉल में 2 बेस्ट पेपर हम लोग करते हैं, जिसमें खाली सर्टिफिकेट हम लोग बेस्ट पेपर अवार्ड करके देते हैं। तो हर एक हॉल में चेयरपर्सन जो है, वो 2 बेस्ट पेपर का नाम निकालेंगे। उसके लिए हम लोगों ने एक शीट बनाया हुआ है। प्रेजेंटर्स को भी मालूम होना चाहिए, इसलिए मैं बता रही हूँ, ताकि आप प्रेजेंटेशन के वक्त वो केयर कर सकते हैं। उसमें जो पॉइंट्स है, एक है ओरिजिनलिटी, सिग्निफिकेंट कंट्रीब्यूशन टू थ्योरी और प्रैक्टिकल, ये पहला पॉइंट है जिसको 10 मार्क्स रहेंगे। देन क्लियरिटी ऑफ रिसर्च क्वेश्चंस एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव्स, इसके लिए 10 मार्क्स है। ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड सीक्वेंस ऑफ कंटेंट एंड टाइम मैनेजमेंट, इसको 10 मार्क्स है। और चौथा जो है क्लियरिटी ऑफ रिजल्ट एंड डिस्कशन कंक्लूजन्स, उसको 10 मार्क्स है। एंड ओवरऑल क्वालिटी, मतलब ओवरऑल परफॉर्मेंस के लिए 10 मार्क है। ऐसे 50 मार्क्स आपको दिए जाएंगे, और उस हिसाब से फिर बेस्ट पेपर अवार्ड निकलेंगे। हर एक सेशन के यहाँ से पेपर्स आपके कलेक्ट किए जाएंगे। जो भी पेपर प्रेजेंटर होगा, उसको पेपर की कॉपी वहां पे चेयरमैन को देनी है। ये आप ध्यान में रखिए। अगर किसी ने नहीं लाई है, तो आप कृपया प्रिंट निकाल लीजिएगा, नहीं तो नहीं, वो पेपर कंसीडर नहीं होगा बेस्ट पेपर अवार्ड के लिए। ये भी मैं पहले ही आपको जानकारी देती हूँ। ये है, अभी हम लोग डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होंगे हॉल में। पहला ये जो हॉल है, वहां पे इस हॉल में मिस भावना तिवारी, धर्मेंद्र कुमार सराफ, ये इसी हॉल में है। डॉक्टर अश्विन रजनीकर, ये इसी हॉल में है। अनिकेत सोनगिरे, मनीषा कोटगिरे, एक्चुअली ये दिया है आपको, उसी में देखिए। तो चलिए, इस हॉल के यहाँ रुकिए। बाकी सब और बाकी के पार्टिसिपेंट आप डिसाइड करिए कहाँ पे बैठना है आपको सुनने के लिए। ये है। ओके, थैंक यू।